Volkswagen. Whether bugs, beetles, Jettas, Rabbits, Passats, Golfs, or campers, VW has been a favorite on American roads for 69 years. Relatively inexpensive to run and repair, for the consumer, owning a VW was a good investment to make. From the free love of the 60s to the sporty, edgier millennials, VW has become a part of American pop culture. Its Das Auto and Pfaffenhugen slogans, while undeniably German, became a part of the American automotive lexicon of fun to drive vehicles, which are both at home on the beach or in the business car park. When referencing their history of solid, sturdy, and dependable transport, Volkswagen has become as American as any of the big three GM, Ford, or Chrysler. When news of the classic Beetle's retirement came in 2003, the country's widespread nostalgia and love for the Beetle wasn't lost on the VW execs in Wolfsburg. So when plans were announced for a new and improved Beetle being built in Mexico, the public's response was just what VW had hoped for. 2012 saw incredible consumer interest in the newly redesigned Beetles, and the American love affair with Volkswagen was rekindled. In the time since the first VW navigated U.S. streets, Volkswagen's leadership has had several instances where their leadership model suffered from an unethical approach to management and sales. In the 70s, Volkswagen sought to defeat U.S. EPA emissions protocols by cheating the system. They were caught and lightly fined. In the 80s, VW saw their involvement in a foreign exchange fraud whose outcome resulted in a $480 million loss to the company. 2005 saw a senior Volkswagen exec embroiled in a bribery scandal with Volkswagen's Works Council officials that included all expense paid trips abroad as well as sex parties with prostitutes. 2006 saw Volkswagen embroiled in yet another bribery scandal, this time with its suppliers. 2009 saw Porsche charged with market manipulation as it distorted Volkswagen's share value over a 4-year period in an attempted takeover bid. Which brings us to Volkswagen's latest black mark, the 2015 Volkswagen emissions scandal. Volkswagen's leadership goals were to become the number one auto manufacturer in the world. And to achieve this goal, not only would it require Volkswagen to sell 10 million cars per year, it would also mean that Volkswagen would need to create a clean, powerful diesel engine capable of meeting the U.S. EPA emission standards levels which are required for the sale of vehicles to be driven on U.S. roads. The only problem with this strategy was that no such vehicle existed. Then Volkswagen CEO Martin Winterkorn, in league with 37 Volkswagen executives, conspired to defraud their American publics by installing software on their turbo diesel injection engines designed to defeat the EPA safe testing protocols. And in that moment, a democratic and ethical approach to leadership was once more abandoned for an authoritarian, unethical approach to management. According to Harvard professor Barbara Kellerman, there are 7 traits that typify bad leaders. Winterkorn and his fellow executives exhibited 4 of these behaviors. They are rigid, callous, corrupt, and insular, all of which are demonstrative of a derailed, tyrannical form of leadership. Culturally, Martin Winterkorn demonstrated the prototypical master leadership style specific to Germany. Per McGregor's theories on approaches to supervision, Winterkorn subscribed to the task-oriented methods-based Theory X form of management. As a task-oriented leader, he focused on the successful completion of the assigned tasks and failed to express any concern for the individuals tasked with the goal's completion. Per the leader behavior, description, questionnaires, consideration, and initiating structure, Winterkorn's approach to leadership is identified as an inconsiderate leadership style, evidenced by his creation of a hostile work environment. Under Winterkorn's leadership, subordinates were made to be afraid to admit failure or to contradict their superiors. He further encouraged company leadership to bully their employees through the use of fear tactics, including firing those engineers or executives who displeased their managers. From a strategic communications perspective, I find that when measured against the Blake and McCants leadership grid, Winterkorn's approach to leadership is best identified as 9-to-1 authority compliance. He demonstrated little concern for personal relationships, viewed his followers as human resources who facilitated the completion of the task he set before them, but did not encourage input from his followers, and finally, he dominated the decision making process. Consequently, Winterkorn's engaged followers adopted a bystander conformist role of followership. I contend that Winterkorn, through both coercive and legitimate power, applied a form of House and Mitchell's path goal theory's directive leadership in providing required specific outcomes without concern for ethical considerations. In the time since the fraud was exposed, Volkswagen was fined a record $2.8 billion. Winterkorn, his American counterpart, and all 37 executives complicit in the scandal have all been since dismissed. Paradoxically, VW achieved its goal of number one auto manufacturer in 2017 and has reestablished its leadership and management styles on a more ethical and democratic footing. The automotive industry has embraced Volkswagen's return, and according to recent sales figures, so too have their publics. By an adoption of alternative fuel-sourced vehicles, namely electric and hydrogen, and with the leadership's assurances of a company-wide return to ethical management, Volkswagen is looking to hopefully maintain and build upon its newfound favor in the marketplace. The ethical pitfalls that Winterkorn and so many other leaders fell prey to are unfortunately not as much the exception to the rule that we'd like them to be. So, to ensure that we maintain a democratic approach to leadership that effectively communicates our brand, transmits the values we like our followers to employ, and creates the kind of atmosphere that sparks creativity and encourages collaboration while holding to established deadlines and ethical protocols, we need to embody the skills we want our followers to use. Great leadership is about who you are, how you act, what you do, and perhaps most importantly, how you work with others. The theory of leadership that most appeals to me would be that of Blake and McCance's leadership grid. In particular, grid reference 9.9, team management. To my mind, a successful leadership outcome is dependent upon how well your team knows its job, how well they can execute, and the relationship you have with your team. It's always about the relationship. If they know how much you care, how much faith and trust you have in them, and the lengths to which you'll go to provide a healthy work environment, there's nothing your team cannot accomplish.